Now that your descriptive brainstorming or pre-write is done, it's time for you to start drafting. So I'm going to start over here with this pre-write, the second step in the pre-writing, and turn it into my draft. So I'll take this with me over here to my drafting paper. Remember, this is just my think aloud. I don't have students in front of me, so I don't have that shoulder partner turn and talk time built in. You'll need to do that. But I will show you how to get students started writing their descriptive paragraph drafts. And remember, this is a draft. I could go back, and I should go back, and make a lot of other changes as I'm working on revisions and making edits. But in the meantime, let me just show you how to get started. Probably won't take you through the whole paragraph just in the interest of time. So when it comes time to start drafting, you need to consider, first of all, that mood that we talked about, setting that mood. And in this case, I want to make sure I'm going with creepy. So I want to keep going back and asking myself, are the descriptions that I'm coming up with creepy enough? The other thing to think about is, how is this going to be used in future writing? Well, one way it's going to be used, it is going to be used, is in their narrative writing. Students can stop and write descriptions within their narratives that help the reader with the imagery of their narrative story. So, keeping that in mind, let's kind of build this description into a story. So how does my abandoned house fit into a story? And when I say story, it doesn't have to have the full plot line, just a situation. So when would I come across an abandoned house? Well, I'd probably come across an abandoned house. You know what, maybe I'm visiting my grandparents. I can remember, and this is me thinking out loud here, when I was a kid, we used to drive to my grandparents' house, and they lived in a very small town, so we drove through a lot of countryside to get to their house. And along the way, there was this old abandoned house, and we actually called it the haunted house. And every time we turned the corner on that gravel road, we would say, oh, there's the haunted house. So I'm kind of picturing that from my childhood. So that's why I want to take maybe a rural kind of a setting. So I'm going to be somebody visiting my grandparents, and I go out, I'm maybe a little bored out there in the countryside because I'm used to the city, and I come across this house. So how am I going to start that? I talked about visiting my grandparents. Let's see. Every summer, I visited my grandparents. Notice I'm skipping lines. Out in the country for 2 weeks at a time. I want to reread this here, make sure it makes sense. Every summer I visited my grandparents out in the country for 2 weeks at a time. Now I need to start talking about, being a city girl. Being out in the country could get boring for me. Being a city girl, oh, you know what? In the city, I'd like to do things like go to the mall, explore the stores, maybe go explore downtown, go to a park and hang out with my friends. So I need to show the contrast. So being a city girl, I was used to exploring the mall and our city parks, but never a rural area. So one day I decided to take a walk. Let's see, if I'm in the country, I'm walking probably on a gravel road, I guess, just to get that imagery in there. I decided to take a walk down the dusty gravel road. Just trying to get a little more description in there. Dusty gravel road that went, I don't know, north of my grandparents' home. Okay, so got my reader on this road with me. Maybe I can talk about the crunch of the gravel. The crunchy gravel led me to an old abandoned. I stopped there because I'm not sure if I need a comma or not, so I'm going to stop and just mark that off so I can check later. The crunchy gravel led me to an old abandoned farmstead. How about that, farmstead? I haven't seen the house yet because it's so overgrown. So now I'm going back here because I remember saying something overgrown over here. You know, I didn't make this into one of our similes, metaphors, reminds me of, but that doesn't mean I can't add this description here. So I start with this overgrown yard, but I talk about the trees that are in this overgrown yard and how the gnarly branches kind of beckoned me to walk toward the house. So the crunchy gravel led me to an old abandoned farmstead. The grass was so overgrown I could hardly see the, do I want to go with house or building? The building, maybe nestled back. So now I'm getting into the trees. Nestled back in the trees. I'm going to do a comma here and add which were dying and leafless. So now I'm going to get into my first piece of figurative language here. The tree branches were I'm going to have to change R to were gnarly old hands beckoning me to come up, and then that's when I start to see the house. So which were dying and leafless. Their limbs or branches were, I can't say like because that would be a simile and I want to do a metaphor here. Their limbs were gnarly old fingers beckoning me to come closer. So now at this point, this is getting a little long, so I'm just going to say I would then move into the entryway, get my reminds me of in there. Then I would probably talk about the cobwebs in the corner, maybe the doors and windows. At that point, I'd have to make some decisions, but you would keep going just like this. Remember to kind of get it into a little bit of a situation or a story and to keep that mood going. That's one thing that I'll have to go back and really make sure that I have built into this. I think those old gnarly fingers is a good start. I just need to double check and make sure I'm on the right track.